days. You might be able to tell I'm outside, so I like living out here in the good weather. My name is Wade Luquette. I am the program director of the Bachelor of Social Work program at Gwynedd Mercy University, and I'm the vice president of PASWE, the Pennsylvania Association for Social Work Education. And I'm joined by our president, Alex Redke. Maybe Kevin Lally, the treasurer, is here, and maybe Margaret Smith, but it's hard to know because there's 175 people registered and people are still coming in. So we have a nice big group. It must be a topic of interest. And so we've been happy to do this along with NASW Pennsylvania for the past a year, these seminars, and we do hope to present more to you in the near future. So we have two great presenters to you today on passing the BSW exam, something new in our state and something very exciting. And so, but how do you get through it? How do you take the test? How do you apply for the test? And so we have two experts with us. The first person who'll be speaking is Dr. Amy Sagen. Amy is the Chief Operating Officer at NASW Pennsylvania. She has some expertise in Alzheimer's and other things before with her clinical skills. And she is some people call her the expert on licensure. I like to call her the sage because I think you need to have that kind of wisdom to get through some of the things you have to go through to take the test. So she's going to talk to you first, and then we're going to go over to Dr. Dawn Apgar. Dr. Apgar is the program director of the BSW program at Seton Hall University. And she's also the author of quite a few books on taking the licensure exam. So she has helped thousands of people across the country to be able to pass this exam. So she is the right person to be doing this today. So at the end of the presentation, I'm going to tell you, take just a couple minutes to tell you about an opportunity you'll have in June, on June 4th, to take an all-day workshop with Dr. Apgar. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end, and we'll put the flyer in the chat box and let you know about that. So without any more ado, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Sagen.
Thanks. Hi and welcome. I'm going to share my screen. Let's make sure this works. All right, are you seeing the NASW? Wonderful. Well, what I would like to talk to you about today for the next 25 minutes is how to apply. Applying for licensing is not as hard as you might think it is, as long as you remember 3 steps. And we're going to go over those 3 steps several times, because in Pennsylvania, your mentors, your professors, and some of your field supervisors might have gotten licensed a little bit of a different way because things changed in 2008. So I want to make sure that you have the most updated information. At the end, my last slide is my email and also a link to the NASW website that has this PowerPoint and some PDF handouts as to what the process and the procedure is. Okay, so if you don't want to write everything down, it is available to you on our website. So applying for the Lbsw. Why should I apply? We're trying to raise the level of social work profession, joining 36 other states, and showing your clients that you have a commitment to the ethical standards, the NASW Code of Ethics, and you have a minimum competence in social work and what you've studied for the past several years. Currently, licensure is still voluntary in the state of Pennsylvania. Okay. More and more people are looking to be licensed, and more agencies are looking for people to be, are preferring on applications, are preferring licensed individuals. So what is the Lbsw? It is our first social work level licensure in the state of Pennsylvania. For those of you who have probably heard professors talking about it, it took a long time for us to get this. In October of 2014, Governor Corbett signed Act 179 into law. However, it usually only takes 3 years for regulations to come into being. It took 6, and last August, it finally came through. So now you are able to register and take the exam to be an Lbsw. At the last state board meeting on Tuesday, there are currently no Lbsws licensed in Pennsylvania yet, but people are in the application process. So for us, it's very, very exciting. We've been working on this for over a decade of trying to ensure that everyone has the opportunity who wishes to be licensed at any level of social work can be. So who can apply in Pennsylvania? Anyone who's obtained a Bachelor of Social Work degree from an accredited university. You can check cswe.org for accreditation standards. You can apply. If you're a recent grad, apply. If you are in your last semester of your bachelor's program and going to graduate in May, you can start applying. If you're going to graduate come August, you cannot apply until the beginning of the summer semester. Okay. So these are the three things, if I leave you with nothing else today, these are the three things you need to know. One, you must apply to the state first. Okay. And I'll show you the websites, I'll show you how to do it, show you all of that. But just remember, state first. Then you will go to ASWB and pay for the examination. Then you will go to the testing site and set up your testing time and location. So pretty easy, 3 steps: state, ASWB, and Pearson VUE, which is the testing site and location. We're going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail so you can kind of understand and follow and have visuals. I'm a visual person, so I like visuals. You'll see what the screens of the websites will be looking like, okay? So first one, we're going to the PALS website, okay? It's the PA licensing system.state.pa. You can find it on any, on our website. You can just Google PALS PA, it will come up. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is you should come to a screen that has an evening picture of the Capitol, okay? This is what it will look like. First and foremost, I would suggest that you go to the what do I need to apply before going and just running through an application. That way you understand what you need to do. So on this, can you see my mouse? There is an application checklist to the top right-hand corner. You're going to click it and you will come to this screen. What board am I going to? And you're going to the social worker, marriage, family therapist, and professional counselors board because we all share one state board. And on the second drop down, it'll say you're going for the bachelor level license. Okay. Once you do that, it's going to bring you a pop-up screen of this is what you need to apply in Pennsylvania. The application, basically, who are you? Just a word of reminder, if you are in school doing this, make sure that you remember your password and you go back in and change it out of your school email if you do not have access to that after you graduate, okay? So these are some things that just kind of helpful tips.
Hey, Amy, can I just pause for a second? On that last drop-down window, you said pull down and select.
The state board that you're looking for?
No, the bachelor's of social work, right?
And then what type of license you want to get.
So if people are trying to go for the master's, there was a question in the chat. It would be the same process?
Yes. If you're going for the master's, same process, social workers, and you're going to look at social worker at the bottom. And if you are clinical, you're going to look at clinical social worker. So all levels, everyone starts the same way for all the applications.
There's also another question in the chat about transferring licensure from one state to another. And my understanding is that doesn't happen at all. You can't transfer, you have to reapply.
There currently is no reciprocity. However, the bachelor level and the LSW are much easier to obtain in another state. Once you take your national exam, basically you apply to the other state, say you've taken it, and usually if there's no holds, liens, or violations against you, no one is suing you for breach of confidentiality or anything like that, then you usually have an easier time getting a license in that state, and you can hold multiple licenses.
So,
right?
And if I could just add from personal experience, so I originally got my license in Jersey. Jersey is a little bit more strict than Pennsylvania. So it was easy for me to add the Pennsylvania license. And I've kept both. But it also took me, I think, I want to say, I'm not sure if it was 1.5 or 2.5 years to actually transfer it.
Oh, wow.
It was quite a pain to transfer it. So I would recommend if someone is going to like move to North Carolina, you might as well apply, in North Carolina, but also keep in mind which state has more strict requirements. And it's better to have that state because you can't go from a lower restrictive state to a more restrictive state. You'd have to redo some work.
Not as easily, yes, correct. And if you are going to another state, an easy way to find out what the regulations are in that state is socialworklicensure.org. It has all states and it will take you directly to the state board of the states to say, hey, there is no BSW licensing in this state. There is no LSW, and some states don't have LSWs, and they go straight clinical. So that might be another useful tool to determine if you're going out of state. Yes, it's usually easier to go to that state first.
So I have a question. So I live in New Jersey. I go to school in Philadelphia. I also work in Philadelphia. Should I apply in New Jersey for my license?
I would. But do you need your licensure for Pennsylvania job?
No, I don't need it right now.
Do you plan to work in Jersey or Pennsylvania?
New Jersey.
Then if you're planning to work in New Jersey, go there. Yep. All right, so just going back to the application, again, it's the same for all 3 levels. You might have some other, for clinical hours, you need to have your clinical hours, you need to have your supervisors, but for the Lbsw, you're doing your application. Who are you? You're doing an application fee. Mandated child abuse credits. That is something you will also have to do within 90 days of your application. So if you took it 2 years ago, they will not accept that. This one, I get a lot of questions about. You can do them online. There's some free ones. You can do them in person, however you wish to do it. It is not your responsibility as the applicant to submit Act 31 to the state. It's the responsibility of the agency who provides Act 31 to match your name with the state. So it's our responsibility. We provide Act 31 as well. It's our responsibility to ensure that your name gets to the state. So this is something where you don't have to upload anything in the Act 31 file. Okay.
Okay, so if I took them during my MSW last year, they would still be good? Because I took the one online from Compass, the childhood education and trauma course. Would I have to send it to them?
All Act 30, all ones that are designated Act 31 have been highly scrutinized by Department of State. And we as agencies have to send them in. If you are doing an application to the state for your LSW or LCSW or your Lbsw, you have to have that done within 90 days of your application. So if you did it last summer, it would not apply to an application procedure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other things for application that we'll need, or that the state will need, is a criminal history check. Again, within 90 days, they want things to be current and accurate or current. When you do your application, they will have links. They will have information on each of these as a separate web page to help you figure out where you need to go and what needs to happen. A Databank is a self-query. They will send you, or you will have the link. You type your name in, and it's usually within 5 minutes, it comes back if you have something against you or not. That you will have to upload into your documents. And then the last thing they'll need for the Lbsw is education verification. So we do the top one, this one, education verification. If you're currently in your last semester, you will send the document to someone who is designated at your school to say, yes, this student is in their last semester. If you choose to do this application after you graduate, which is absolutely fine, you will not do the education verification. You will just send a transcript to the state. Okay. So, and we'll get back to that in just a moment. But yes, if you're currently in school, your last semester, education verification. If you've completed school, send them a transcript. So I told you I like pictures. So here we're back at PALS again. What you're going to do is you're going to start and register for a new account. Okay, if you're at the BSW level and you don't have any other licenses, if you have a license in another field, you can register through that account. But if this is your first Pennsylvania license, you're going to need to register for account. So you'll be creating your account. This is what it will look like. Basic demographic information. And then on each page, it will give you the other expectations. It'll remind you about Act 31. It'll say, we need your self-query, we need this, and your education verification. Make sure you remember your password for this. The reason for that is you can go back into your account and look to see what has been checked off. Please know that the state is not instantaneous. If you send something on Monday, by Tuesday, I guarantee it will not be checked off. Sometimes it takes a few days, and actually right now, because we just ended licensure within Pennsylvania, it's taking 3 to 4 weeks for all the check marks to be matched. Okay, so this is a little bit of a planning thing. Don't think you're going to do it in one night and the next day get acceptance into, hey, go take your exam. So it does take a little time. Once that's step one, right? So once step one is done, the state says, yes, you are approved. You fulfilled all of our requirements. You may now go to step two. And step two, they'll do it through email or through your account saying you have permission to go. The state then, because they don't want you to get ahead of them, will send your name to ASWB saying, yes, you can register. So if ASWB doesn't have your name, they will not let you register for the exam. Step two, this is what ASWB looks like, right? You will just go and register for the exam. And Dr. Apgar is going to do a lot more about the exam process, so I'm not going to go too much into that. For the Lbsw exam, it is currently $230. All right, so this is something you want to take time. You guys are all going to excellent schools within Pennsylvania. And if you're outside of Pennsylvania, sorry, I'm just talking Pennsylvania at the moment. You've gone to excellent schools and you should be prepared for this, but there's ways that you can prepare a little bit more, usually calming nerves and things like that. ASWB is where you go. The one thing I do want to point out quickly is you can go and see, well, what's going to be on the exam, right? So within ASWB, they have something called KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And you can type that into the little search bar on ASWB and find the exam content outlines. So over here, it'll say, here's your bachelor level, and it will give you 3 or 4 pages of what you should know. Not everything on these pages are going to be on it for you, but it'll give you a good idea of what you should know that will be on the exam, okay? So first we did the state, then we go to ASWB, and they will give you notification that yes, you've paid for it, and you may now go and schedule your exam. When I took it eons ago, there were only 6 places in the state of Pennsylvania that I could go and take the exam. Since then, they've modernized a little bit, and they do it at Pearson VUE, which is a testing center, which makes it more accessible to most places in Pennsylvania. When you go to Pearson VUE, you will go and look at the schedule and see when to take it. There are different opportunities for you. If you're a Monday person and you can get a Monday, great. I'm not really a Monday person, but I'm a morning person. I do not want to do this in the afternoon. That is not my mentalness is not there. I want the morning. So I took mine at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? So you have a little bit of flexibility to work with your strengths as to who you are, okay? The other thing on Pearson VUE is there's a lot of information about when you get to the site, what to expect. how to expect to take the exam, and there's honor codes of I will not tell anyone after the exam any of the questions I've seen, because what happens is not all your questions are going to be different than some of the other questions that other test takers will have. Pearson VUE is everything is an online exam. It is not paper and pencil. When I took mine, I could not take a cough drop into mine. I don't know if they thought I was writing answers on them or something, but everything stayed in a locker, and I went in and took the exam.
Hey, Amy?
Yeah.
We have a whole slew of questions in the chat box. Should we ask them now, or what do you want to wait?
Give me 1 second to just finish, and then we'll go back.
Okay.
Okay, so that is the test. You will know your results fairly quickly. It just takes the computer a few moments to compute. And if you nearly pass, which means you didn't, if you nearly pass, you need to wait 90 days. You do not need to reapply to the state. Pearson VUE will send to ASWB, which will send to the state, that you will need to take it again if you wish to be licensed. Then after the 90 days, you'll get notification and you can go back to ASWB and pay $230 to retake the exam. Okay, so you don't need to do the application, but you will need to pay for the exam. And if you pass, this is my last slide. If you pass, congratulations, your hard work has paid off. You will receive your license from the state. If you are currently in school, you will not receive it until they receive transcripts after graduation. And then if you are already graduated and sent your transcripts, you should get it about 4 weeks after you take the exam. Please do not add Lbsw to your signature until you have this lovely piece of paper in your hand, okay? So do not sign, because then you might be brought up on charges of practicing without a license and holding yourself as a licensee. So wait till that. The last thing, and then I will go to questions. The last thing is, then you have to know that once you're licensed, you're going to be held to certain standards of every 2 years, you're going to be renewing. The renewal for all social workers, regardless of level, is February 28th of odd years. We start March 1st of odd years. So we just started a new cycle, and it's a 2-year cycle. You will be required to do your Act 31 during the next cycle. But if this is your first license in Pennsylvania, you will not need your 30 credits until your second renewal. Okay. If you're an Lbsw and you go for your LSW, this is not your first license, you will need credits. Okay. So those are just really important things to say. Regulations, know your regs. And for those of you who need or want, there's my email. And at the bottom, this PowerPoint in a slightly modified way is on our website, and you can go to the Lbsw licensure website of our webpage. So, do you want me to go to
Questions?
Yeah, hold on, I can't see them. Okay.
I can tell you the questions if that would be easier.
That would be helpful, because
Okay, so the transcript, when do you submit the transcript? Before or after the application? How does that work?
Transcripts will be submitted after you graduate.
And this is Shannon's question, by the way, but go ahead.
Sorry?
It's Shannon's question. I'm just
Okay. So Shannon, after graduation, once you have transcripts available to you, you can add them to your PALS account.
So you set up the account first,
Mm-hmm.
and then do it. Okay, and then
yes, if your account is not, if you do not finish your application within a year, you're going to have to start over. But if you start it now and wait 4 or 5 months, that's fine.
Does it have to be hard copy, or you said to upload it? We don't have to mail it to them. Like, we don't have to.
No, they want everything electronic anymore.
Not directly.
Yep, so there will be an address on the website where you type it into. I did to my bursar's office saying, please send to this address.
Does anyone know if the test is currently being offered in person, or is it all online?
It's only in person.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
not online.
And then,
It's a computerized test, but it's only in person, yes. And Pearson VUE has reopened most of its locations. There still might be a little backlog on some days and things like that, but it's reopened.
and then Dawn, I think this is for you, is the class that you're offering, is that for LSW and Lbsw only?
I teach classes for all. I think the one that the flyer, this is sponsored specifically for the bachelor's level.
The Lbsw?
Yes, it's
Okay.
sponsored by the Educators Association and NASW specifically for undergraduates.
But if we had enough interest in for MSW or LSW, we could arrange that.
Yes, yes, we can arrange anything that if there's a demand for it, we can arrange it. And I think we answered the rest of the questions. Someone asked about personal experience of how the test was. I mean, I guess this is an age question. Who took it last? Because I think I took it a long time ago.
I think that's a good lead into what I'm going to talk about, because I'm actually going to be talking all about the test. So I think I can talk about the probably 100,000 people, both personally myself and lots of people that I've helped. So I can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and there's a few other questions about the Databank. Q, do you want to ask that question out loud?
Kadria. Hi, I'm an MSS candidate at Bryn Mawr College, and I wanted to know, because I'm in the process of waiting for some things to come back. And so currently looking at my application on the site, it's saying that it's pending review, although I uploaded it on 3/1. And so when you explained it, that's not necessarily what I did. So I want to make sure that there wasn't another process for uploading the Databank report. I actually printed out the query and got it notarized at a bank and then uploaded it that way. Would that be an issue?
It shouldn't be an issue. All I did was screen picked my computer and then sent it in. But no, that shouldn't be an issue. Just know that right now they are, because licensing just ended, they are very behind.
That's actually really validating to hear, because myself and other candidates are very much nervous. And so since I have the room right still, can I just ask also, is it odd for it to still say pending review for the CHC, although we pay for it already? Have you already paid for it? It's not odd. Okay, cool. That's it. Thank you. Thank you.
No, some have been taking 6 to 7 weeks right now.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Just because 25,000 people in Pennsylvania just renewed, and people who missed that 1,500 missed renewal. So 1,500 are trying to reactivate, and people who are clinical social workers in private practice right now are still waiting 3 to 4 weeks to see clients. So they are a little bit behind.
So Barbara had a question about how long does I believe you're asking about the Act 31. And I think she asked if it was 5 years. I think it's 2 years, right? Because we have to redo it with every licensure cycle, don't we?
For volunteers, it's a 5-year thing. However, for licensing, we have to do it every 2 years. And the state, if you're doing an application, wants it within 90 days of your application.
And Noelle asked, how long after graduating should you take the exam? My recommendation would be do it as quick as possible. That's why we are, actually NASW is offering an Act 31. I put the information in the chat, the date, but we don't have a flyer yet. And Amy, I was wondering if you had a link to that specific course. So the idea is students graduate in May, then you immediately take the Act 31 class, you study in our June seminar for the exam, and then you take it right after that. You really want to keep it as close as possible, because you'd be surprised how much knowledge you lose over time. That's what I would say. Anybody else want to offer an opinion about that?
I agree. That's what I typed in.
And then I'm going to type in, I know we have some, but there's also a free PIT version for Act 31 that is online that you can do at your own leisure, time, day, night, whatever. So I will type that into the chat as well.
And Noelle also asked, can you take it 20 years after getting your bachelor's? I believe people are. I mean, that's one of the things that people, even professionals who've been around for a while, you have to get the licensure, unless you already have like the master's LCSW. And then Lori asked, is there reciprocity for any other states? There is absolutely no reciprocity for any other states. It is a little bit of a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
So basically, whatever state you want to work in, you want to apply to. But we also talked about some states have more rigorous requirements. So you want to go to the more rigorous state and then step down. Because if you get lower requirements, you cannot transfer it to a higher state. You'll have to do more work. So that's also something where like, do more hours, get more supervision than what's the minimum required in your state if it's a light state. I do not, Jeffrey asked, are you excluded from licensure if you have a criminal record?
I responded to that.
Oh, very good. Okay.
You're not excluded. So what happens is you're fingerprinted, the licensing boards will look at what the convictions were and things like that. Usually they may need some more information. You need to have been like off parole, for example, or things like that. You would have had to pay restitution, but there are many social workers who have some criminal or other kinds of histories.
Thank you.
And
Don, why don't we go on to your portion of this?
Okay.
And let's thank Amy. Yay, Amy, thank you.
I thought I was the only one with the cough drop experience. So I'm glad to hear we're kindred spirits here.
When you take it January 5th, yeah.
Yeah, you need a lot of cough drops. So I'm going to, I just want to start. Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn Apgar. My presentation is probably going to be about a half hour because I want to leave time for some questions or so, but I'm going to need to talk quickly. People have a lot of information. And this is, I would just say, not supposed to be a test prep course. So I'm just going to kind of quickly go through some things that will help you in thinking about and preparing for the test. But I know, and maybe we could put up the flyer again or whatever. I know there's, I'm going to be doing a much more detailed course in June for this particular group. So this is a little bit about me. I actually, the reason Dr. Sagen, I was like responding to like every question was, I have a lot of experience, not only in the test, but I was the chair of my licensing board for forever. I was on my licensing board, and a lot of my experience is in ethics. And actually, Jeffrey, to your point, dealing with social workers who have experienced like professional impairment, mental health, substance use issues, and return to competency to practice. So I'm a huge NASW fan. I'm a huge licensure fan. I feel like everyone should be a member of NASW. So I'll do a little plug for NASW as well. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today just about the exam. One thing I would say is, and Dr. Sagen did a great job talking about the importance of licensure. Licensure is obviously important for social workers. It leads to better jobs. It leads to higher salaries, right? And the professionalization of practice, but it's also really important for the consumer. So a lot of times we're thinking about it from how does it help us? But I think licensure is really important because we're a regulated profession, and it tells the consumer that we're regulated. We wouldn't go to an unlicensed doctor, or we wouldn't go to a lawyer, right, who hadn't passed the bar. So it's kind of the same thing here. And the exam is just one part of being licensed. Often that's the most anxiety producing, but as Dr. Sagen said, there's lots of other requirements. And so just because you pass the exam, you don't want to use the initials Lbsw, right? There's, applications and other fees. So people were sharing that they were nervous, they were about the exam. That's totally typical. We know that most people pass the exam the first time. I'll show you the pass rates, but there are some people who struggle with passing the exam. All right. And the reason that they struggle with passing the exam is that this is probably a lot different than what you may have done in your BSW or your MSW program. I don't know about you, but I got through my MSW and we didn't have any tests. We wrote a lot of papers. We did a lot of process recordings, a lot of role plays, but I graduated and then I found out I had to take a 4-hour test and it was multiple choice. And I was like, oh my gosh. So, a lot of times I'm working with educators and I'm talking to students a little bit about what the test is about. And I think the more you know about the test, sort of the easier it becomes, okay? This is an article that I wrote. Students hate journal articles, I know. I hated them. I was a student once, but this was an article that I wrote, which is, I called it The Great Divide, because it really talked about how you can be a great student, right? And a great social worker, but you can do not so well on the test. And there are also people who do really well on the test who are not great social workers. So this is really a knowledge-based test. You need to know the basic sort of principles, right, of the theoretical and the other sort of content that you learned in school. But again, being a good social worker is more than just knowing the concepts, right? It's being able to demonstrate them. And you probably heard about the competencies when you were in school. And so a lot of times as educators, we're interested in, can people take that knowledge and translate it into, right, effective practice. So if you want to read an interesting journal article, this is one that I'm going to recommend. It'll tell you a little bit about what it's like to do well on the test and what it's like to practice. So when we think about doing well on the test, here are the 4 things that you need. And we're going to spend about a half hour talking about each of those. So that's probably about 7 or 8 minutes per topic, okay? But you need obviously time out of your schedule, you need to stay calm, you need to understand what the questions are asking, and you need to know the content. This is, Dr. Sagen talked a little bit about the price, but if you, I know we have some people here studying for the master's test, some were studying for the bachelor's, you can see that about 3 out of 4 social workers pass the test the first time. For the bachelor's test, it's a little bit lower. It's not because it's 2 out of 3, but it's not because it's necessarily harder, but you'll see that fewer people take the bachelor's test every year compared to the master's and the clinical test. And that's because not every state has bachelor's level licensure. Every state has a clinical license. Most states have master's level licenses, and fewer states have a bachelor's license. So, but many states are getting them. So I'm trying to think, people were talking about Virginia, Delaware. These are some states where they've just added, you know, bachelor's, master's, and clinical licensure, okay? So you could, these are the pass rates. I think certainly what you'll find is that by taking a course, right, or prepping, nobody has ever told me that a course is not helpful, right? The more information and the more knowledge you have, sort of the better that you can prepare. We'll talk more about that. So taking time out of your schedule. My house was never cleaner than when I was studying for the licensure test. And that's because, I don't know about you, but everything is more fun than studying. So I was organizing my sock drawers, I was raking my lawn, I was anything that I could think of to not study. Yes, I was doing that, okay? But you are gonna take a little bit of time and need to take a little bit of time to get ready for the test. I always say, as soon as you're eligible, and Dr. Sagen did a great intro of how to become eligible in Pennsylvania. As soon as you're eligible to sit for the exam, I recommend doing that. Now, somebody said, well, I graduated 20 years ago. Is it too late? No, of course, it's never too late. But you really want to do it now, right? Because it's like anything else. You start to procrastinate, you start to put it off. right? And then especially if you don't need it for your job, we were talking to somebody on the course here, you kind of say, I'll do it when I need it, when I need a job, that requires it, and years pass. And then you're kind of like, oh, I wish I had done it. So definitely set a date, okay? Start to make that part of your 2021 or 2022 resolution, right? And start to work towards it. And that may mean finishing up your degree. That may mean going ahead and getting registered, studying, etc. Okay, but definitely you wanna put that on your to-do list. Dr. Sagen talked about the fact that there are different exams, okay, and there are different blueprints for the exam. So these are actually my books. This is not an infomercial. I just want you to know I'm not here trying to, sell my books, though I think they're great. But what I would say, there are lots of other good resources out there. I'm not gonna, but there's also lots of bad resources out there. In fact, there are some test prep resources that are written by non-social workers, people without degrees. So whatever resource you decide to use, you wanna make sure that it's reputable. You wanna make sure that it's written by a social worker, right, who knows something about the content, okay? If you do take the course in June, right, which I'm watching the chat, you will get this book. So do not go out onto Amazon and buy it, or the publisher or whatever. This book will come free with the course. So look at the one on the left. It's beautiful, it's orange. It's for the bachelor's exam. It will come free with the course. You're gonna get it, which is a bargain because it costs actually more than the course here. And it will come with not only the text, but the online resources that will help you study. So Dr. Sagen talked a little bit about the KSAs, which are the knowledge, skills, and abilities statements. The blueprint, this book is written to that blueprint. So it covers all of the content that you need to be studying. And we're gonna talk lots more about that in June, okay? So more to be covered. So this is the table of contents, but the reason I'm giving you this is there are lots of topics that you need to study for the exam. So there are lots of topics. I haven't counted them up, but on each exam, there's probably 200 different topics that could be on your test. And so you need to know what those are, okay? And you need to be familiar with those. The good thing is that you're all in great graduate programs in Pennsylvania, or we have good programs in other states too, though they're much better in Pennsylvania than anywhere else. But so I'm sure you've been learning this, okay, in your program. But it is good to have a little bit of a sort of dust off or review. Think of any licensure prep course kind of like an SAT review course, or a GRE review course, or somebody taking the bar exam. Pretty much anybody who takes a standardized test nowadays takes some sort of kind of review course, even if they go to a fantastic program. So somebody told me, oh, Dr. Apgar, your book is like a BSW program in a box, okay, or in a book. And so I think that's kind of funny, right? But it's basically summarizing everything that you learned during your 4 years. But you do need to know a lot of different content areas. So if you look, I don't know if somebody's muted, or if you look at the frameworks here, there are 4 different exams, right? Most of you are either interested in the bachelor's or the master's. A couple of you are graduating, I'm seeing, from MSW programs, but you'll see these are the 4 content areas that are on the test, and about a quarter of the test is in each of the 4 content areas, okay? So for the bachelor's, you'll have about a quarter of your questions in the human development and behavior in the environment and diversity areas. You'll have about a quarter of your questions, 29% in the assessment and planning, about a quarter, 26% in interventions. And then the last area covers professional relationships, values, and ethics. Okay, so those are how the KSAs or the topics are broken out. The one thing that you're going to want to do is develop a study plan. All right, you know, I said taking time out. You're going to want to develop a plan using whatever materials you use. So whether it's the book that you're getting in June, right? Or maybe there are some schools that, you know, provide some study resources to you, but you're going to want to take that information and sort of chunk it up, and you're going to want to develop a plan. It's always better not to cram. It's always better to give yourself a little bit more time, right? And be realistic. People will often say, how long should I study for the test? I don't know you, right? I don't know what you know and what you don't know. Probably it's best for you to find out what is going to be on the test, right? Look at that content outline and say, how long is it going to take to go through, right? And break up and to read the material, okay? Usually people need a little bit of time. This is not a test you're going to study for in a day, a few days, right? It's going to depend. Are you working? Are you not working? How much time do you have during the day? If you're only studying on the weekends, it could take a couple weeks, right? If you're studying and you during the week, you don't have a job yet, right? And you're taking 4 to 5 hours a day, maybe you could get this done sooner, okay? So it's going to depend, all right? It's going to depend. Usually I say to people, pick a date and study to that date, right? And that's going to depend on how much time you are going to take. Staying calm, all right? Anxiety, people are like, I'm worried. I was watching the chat. Anxiety can be a motivator, but we don't want it to be a paralyzer. So use that anxiety to get yourself motivated, to get yourself enrolled in the course, right? To get yourself the materials, but you don't want to become paralyzed. This is doable, right? You've got this, right? You've been waiting for this for the last 4 years if you're an undergraduate, year or two if you're an MSW. So you've already graduated and achieved, so much. Of course, there's policy content on the exam. We're social workers. We work at the Mezzo and the macro level, okay? So of course we have to know how to do that, Rosemary, of course. So here, when we're stressed, right? And you'll see when you look at the content outlines, what is on the test. But one of the things that I say as far as managing stress is once you identify and pick a date and pick a location, you can take a virtual tour of the testing site. That's always helpful. If you've tested already, let's say because, we don't have any bachelor's. It was so sad when Dr. Sagen said there are no people licensed at the bachelor's level yet in Pennsylvania. Soon there will be, it'll be you, right? But once you've taken a test, if you decide to go on, for example, for a master's test, I say go back to the testing site that you're familiar with. If you've already tested there, okay? You need to, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. Take care of yourself. When I get people who say, I'm studying 8 hours a day, I'm not eating, I'm not doing anything, all I'm doing is studying, I say, wait a second. That's not healthy, right? We need to build in some self-care for ourselves. And so I always say, would you treat a client like that? Well, don't treat yourself, right? So this is, there you don't get to pick the test, okay? You if you are an LBSW, you're taking the bachelor's test, You don't get to take what we call the advanced generalist. This is a bachelor's test. And if you're going to be an LSW in Pennsylvania, you're sitting for the master's test. So you don't get to pick the test. They've told you. It's not like you can shop the tests. So here, stay calm. Develop a good study plan. I always find that alleviates anxiety as well. Alex, do you have a raised hand?
I do. Thank you for paying attention to me. Okay.
Always pay attention.
There was one question I couldn't answer and I wanted to give back to you. Is there policy content on the exam?
Well, I do what every good social worker does. And when someone asks me a question, I say to people, Dr. Redkay,
Yes, ma'am.
Does a social worker need to know how to operate at the meso and macro level?
Yes, definitely.
Well, then we've
It'll be on
answered
the
it.
exam.
So yes, of course, it doesn't even matter. I say this to my clinical folks. They'll say, oh, I'm a clinician. I don't need to know anything about policy. I get this all the time. I go, oh, really? You're a clinician and you don't need to know anything about policy. You don't operate at the meso and macro level. You've forgotten. So then we get back to our old social work roots. So every exam, bachelor's, master's, even the clinical, right? I'm not saying you have to be a specialist in policy. You don't need to have taken a specialization, right, on the macro, but I would hope that, and I know I'm looking at these educators here on that they teach you the importance of systems level change. So every social worker is going to need to do that. Okay. So the third area is we need to make sure that we know how to answer the questions correctly. Okay. And this is where a test prep course can be helpful, or a book, or a material, or some of you maybe in programs where they talk, either undergraduate or graduate programs where they talk about, I don't use the word tips or secrets or whatever, but they talk a little bit about question wording. Yes, of course, any standardized test, it's multiple choice, right? So here I have I think we're gonna have 50 people. People are saying, what if we don't get 50? I know this is gonna sell out, right? So this is a multiple choice question. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but you'll see that in this multiple choice question, there are things that we call a stem. There are things that we call distractors, keys, qualifying words. There's a whole lingo, okay, of how to analyze multiple choice questions, right? And so here, right, a social worker states that he's received services in the past and it didn't work out. He appears tense and angry. Sorry, not a social worker. Okay, a client, sorry. Telling the social worker that he does not want the social worker to speak with the prior provider. In order to best assist the client, the social worker should first. All right, so this would be a typical kind of scenario that you might get on the test, right? And there's ways in which this is multiple choice, there's multiple sentences. And so we have to figure out, wow, what's important here, right? And so here, the stem, which is the last sentence before the answers, tells you what should you be focusing on, right? Given what we call the context or the background and the presenting problem. And then we have 4 answers. You can read them yourself, but 3 of them are what we call distractors. 1, the right answer is called the key, right? Which you probably would have picked out here. And so one of the things that's a little bit hard is that on the test, all of the answers look good, right? It's not like they're going to have ridiculous answers. And so the right answer here is B, assure the client that the prior provider will not be contacted, right? This has to do with assuring the client that he, she, they, right, have control, that they have self-determination, right, that they have to consent to things. And so sometimes people have difficulty picking out those right answers. Okay, so in a course and in any kind of prep materials, you'll usually see lots of practice questions and things that will help you get ready for how these questions are structured. There's also different kinds of questions. So there's recall questions, there's application questions, there's reasoning questions. And I'm going to show you this slide, okay, which really is a good depiction of how the same information can be formatted in 3 different ways. Okay, it can be formatted in 3 different ways. And so on the bachelor's test, most likely it would be formatted more in that recall, right? Maybe, and we're going to talk about this more in June when I see some of you again, but it tends to be a little bit more straightforward with maybe some application questions. But for those of you that are taking the master's, or you're thinking you want to go on in the future after you get experience, maybe to the clinical exam, you're going to see more of those reasoning type of questions. So see all the way over to the right, right? These tend to be a little bit longer. They tend to be a little bit more complicated, but the answer here is the same. This is actually the same question. It's just formatted differently. So here, the right answer, you can type into the chat. This would be kind of fun. If you know the answer and you want to type it in, go ahead. If you don't know the answer, you don't want to type it in, that's okay. Here we're looking for a mood stabilizer, right, which is often prescribed to people who have bipolar or other kinds of mood disorders. I'm going to call out Alicia here and Leslie and others. Yes, the right answer here is C. Okay, it's lithium. So A is an antipsychotic, B is an antidepressant, and D is an anti-anxiety. Okay, so again, just gives you an idea of different kinds of ways questions can be asked. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about was just knowing the social work content. And so that was a question on medications. That's just one of the KSAs. There's lots of other content. Dr. Redkey was asking about policy. Yes, we do need to know a little bit about how to make systems level changes, how to operate in the organizational level. What are some of the human development theories? So if you go and look at the KSAs or you get a test prep resource, it will kind of go over those content areas for you. So this actually is a great, great slide that kind of goes to the point before, is that most of you are probably focusing in on that macro level. I mean, sorry, on that micro level. You want to work with individuals, you want to work with families, right? You're focusing in on that micro work. You might be doing case management, right? Or doing direct services at a homeless service agency or a substance use agency. But often people are surprised because they think it's like their practice. They think it's like what they're doing day to day, and they don't realize that they're, you know, pretty much every program makes you take some sort of policy class. I don't know about yours, right? I'm looking at some of the educators here. Yes, they're shaking their heads, right? Policy is a requirement. So would it be on there? It better be, okay? Or research. I know it's your favorite class. You love it, right? Yes, of course you need to know about research. All of those classes that pretty much every social work program has. Those foundation classes are very relevant to the test. Okay, so I don't know if that makes you feel good because you've had them and you've done well, or maybe not so good because they weren't your favorites. But the good news is that all of that foundational knowledge, even though when you look at the book, it's 400 pages long, you're like, oh my gosh, it's not new material. Okay, it's not new material. It's just the cliff notes of kind of what you've already learned. There's always gaps. I will tell my story. It's not, I still have a cough drop here, but it's not the cough drop story, but I took research over the summer. I heard it was easier. It was, we only met a few times. I had a very easy professor. I didn't have a book and I got an A, okay? I was super happy. But then I had to take the test, all right? And even worse, I decided to go back for another degree and didn't know anything about research, okay? So I basically spent my time learning research at home in front of my computer. So we're all gonna have gaps. The good news is that even in your gap areas, even if you have a gap area for the person who graduated 20 years ago, you've forgotten things, it comes back to you. Okay, it does come back to you. I actually could have been grandfathered in my state, and I'm not sure what came over me, but I missed the window. I was super mad because then I had to sit for the exam, but I was actually happy after I was licensed and I had taken the test, because if you are grandparented in, that means if you move to another state, you're going to have to retest. So the good news is that when people are asking about reciprocity, sure, you do need to apply in each state. You have to go through the fees and the paperwork. But once you pass the exam in one state, you always have it. So you do want to have it, right? You do want to take the bachelor's or the master's, because if you do move to another state, assuming that you've been working and all of there's no competency issues and things like that, you probably will not need to retest. You'll just have ASWB send your results, and you will then be, we call it something different. You call it the Lbsw in Pennsylvania. We call it the CSW in New Jersey. Every state calls it something different, but you will be able to go ahead and just get that license without having to retest, okay? So don't worry if you've forgotten everything. For those person who graduated 20 years ago, you've learned it once, you will remember, okay? So I'm gonna stop sharing. Rolanda is asking about what policy classes. I don't know what program you went to, but I'm not aware of any program that doesn't have some kind of policy content. So I would find it unlikely on the undergraduate or graduate level that you didn't have it built into some course. Does anyone want to ask questions? Unmute, raise. Dr. Redke showed me there's a raise hand function. So
yes. So actually, what I did, there was some interest regarding the MSW class, and some people were putting it sort of in the chat. So what I did is I quickly created a Google form for people who are interested in the MSW. So the link is in the chat. So if you're interested in the MSW version, because the bachelor's version, we already have for June, but if you're interested in the master's, go ahead and fill out that form. It just basically says, yes, I'm interested, and gives us your name, number, and email. If you are a faculty member and you think that your students will be interested, then you could go ahead and put your information in there as well. And actually, I'm going to create like just something that says I'm a faculty member or a student.
Great. Leave it to a social worker to just problem solve right on the spot here. And thank you, Dr. Sagen, for the KSA. So you can see what Dr. Sagen posted when you're saying what's on the test, right? You know, take a look at that. That's actually, you know, public information. And so you're not going to have all those topics, but any of those could be on your test. And so I always laugh because yes, I belong to lots of groups and listservs. And I always see people say, oh, don't study that. That's not on the test. I took it. But be careful because that's that person's test. Not everyone's taking the same version. Not everyone is. So any of the things that Dr. Sagen has there in that link could be on your test. Doesn't mean they're going to, but you want to be ready. Dr. Sagen, this might be better for you. Jared's talking more, I think it's about scope of practice. That looks like a scope of practice issue of what a BSW can do versus a MSW.
Yeah, scope of practice for BSW, I can get you the exact language. I don't have it in my head at the moment, but it's more the case management, and it's not going out into private practice. It's not saying I'm owning my own business for clinical interventions and therapeutic interventions. So it's more in community centers and more the case management aspect of it. But let me go see if I can find that and send that to you guys as well.
It is really important to know that because that's where people get themselves in trouble, is doing things they think. And even as a student, we have students who do things, but just students are often exempt from licensure laws. So you might be doing something as a student that doesn't mean you can do it after you graduate. So it's really important to know those those scope of practice issues. Comments just about the test? I know you guys are out there. No, Rolanda, unmute and show us, talk to us.
Hello, everyone. Basically, I've been doing, I guess what you say, social work as a paraprofessional for over 30 years. I'm also involved politically. And I often would trip on myself as to why I wasn't making some impasses, sometimes when it was just that simple to change people's lives. I then discovered, coming from out of the treads, that this is how policy operates. And that is a particular system. So that's what kind of brought me back to school, actually, was to be able to do some jurisprudence work or possibly policy writing. However, I see that that might be a problem because the things that I would like to address, those people don't look like me. So how do you break that glass ceiling and being able to lend your expertise on being poor, Black, and part of a group that has been, with a lot of disparities. So, because I not only personally, but professionally have had a lot of experience in terms of going up Harrisburg and doing, doing different type of advocacy, work as well. But also as a local person who is involved politically, I'm trying to explain to my voters how this works and that all politics is local first, because you can't make an impact on the top unless you can galvanize at the bottom. It's all about that foundation. And that's what kind of, brought me really back to school, because I had to learn, the hard way how this all was done. When we, let's say if we talk about, which, it was a learning process for me, but then when we talk about the ADA law, well, I found out that was part of the civil rights. However, it was too big of a package to include. So what I understood, policy also sometimes go in little bits and pieces. So then I did a research paper for another class for sign language. And I discovered that group, along with those with intellectual disabilities, were the first to go under that ADA law. That was 7 years after the civil rights law was passed. So you see how that time goes before stuff can get legislated. And then after that, in 1980, mid-80s, they then instituted, because based on research, so I did my homework because I was doing something else and ran into this. They found out by a certain time of the 90s, 1/3 of the population will be disabled. So now we got to do the Americans Disabilities Act.
So Rolanda, if I could pause you for a second there, it sounds like you got a lot of knowledge and you're like knee deep in it. And I do think I would suspect that you might have a little too much knowledge for like the exam, right? So
I don't think so.
well,
I mean, thank you for the compliment, but I mean, you know.
Well, I think one of the issues is like, so when I took the exam, that was a long time ago, but like when I took the exam, it's like I had a lot of practice experience, but some of the questions are more kind of like, I don't know, they're it's not really how you do things on the ground level.
Thank
You
you.
know what I mean?
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
so that's where it's like, you got to kind of weigh that out. But the other thing too, is some of what you're talking about is actually really important. And Posway has actually held a number of events. I mean, about some of the stuff that you're talking about. We had a social justice committee looking for specifically what are the policies that we should be advocating for as social workers in the state. And we have monthly meetings with NASW to say, what are the policies?
I'm going to join y'all. I just want to interject. I'm going to join y'all because maybe
I was going to say
that would be, you know, segue to get
right. One other thing, and that's great. And one other thing I want to just throw out there is like, you can also become a question writer, right? So like, if you don't think the exam represents all people, well, then all people need to volunteer, right, to become question writers, because there are issues of representation. And we are very aware of that. I mean, even just the people who are coordinating the event, like I'm not blind, I know what we look like, right?
Thank you.
I am very aware of it. But the problem is we don't have a lot of people volunteering. So
well, I mean, I can definitely do that, but I did, you know, have some.
But the other thing is the topic today is slightly off. So I think you and I should talk like offline about more of this. I think we can spend a lot of time.
I will definitely send you my email now.
Fantastic. And Amy posted a few things in there. Do you want to say something about what you posted in there about the?
Sure. In the chat box, I posted where the Act 179 is located. So if you want to actually see what it says as to the particulars of scope of practice for bachelor level social worker and social work in Pennsylvania. But then I also just copied the scope of practice paragraph and the limitations. So it really just says that it's a non-clinical position and you must be under supervision of other people. So you're not going to be a private practitioner hanging your sign out on your door saying, I can now serve you. But that is just where all the information is held is in that law. And then the last thing I just put is someone asked about membership for NASW. Socialworkers.org is the national site, just /join. And it's there, and I put it directly to the benefits page as to what you get as a member. Most important thing for that is the networking, in my opinion, as students, and then really kind of interacting with other students and getting that community feel for the profession.
The other thing too, sorry, if I could just add about the membership. So we're also Posway's holding a Welcome to the Profession event, where we will talk about the benefits of NASW membership and answer all those questions. And I was just feverishly looking it up, but I'm going to put in the link to register for that event in the chat. Dawn.
No, I was just going to say, and I'm not paid by NASW, so just, I've been a member for, I think, I'm scared to say, it's probably 35 years, but what happens is, I'm going to bring it back to licensure, is that these rules and things are quite complicated and there's a lot of changes. I've been on the board. I had to step off because I work for the governor of my state and I couldn't be on there. And I go to every licensure board meeting, but reading laws and regulations is hard. And so NASW really is the main source of information as far as like getting some of this like new laws, new things. And so I always say NASW membership is like the best malpractice insurance. And I'm not even talking that I have, because information is power. And if it's, I pay a lot more than a student, but I wouldn't, it's my first bill that I pay every year because I view it as a really essential if you're practicing. Like, I can't imagine not being an NASW member.
The other thing with membership is we just ended our licensing period cycle. And if you're a member, I walked through probably 150 people through the licensing cycle or the licensing application and just kind of held their hand going through it. So if you're a member, we will take I'm sorry to say, but we'll take a lot more time to get you what you need and where you need to go. So if you have questions about ethics, or you have questions about licensing, or I can't figure out how to do this and that, we can also try to use, if you're a member, I'll try to use my backdoor into the state to help see where your applications are as well. So there's a lot to membership.
And is it cheaper to become a member when you're still a student? Yes. So there's an advantage to do it now.
An advantage to do it day before graduation, because then you get a stepwise increase over the next 3 years rather than straight to professional member.
That's why I kept going to school to get that student rate. So that's why it took me 4 years to get my master's and 9 years to get my PhD, because I figured I want to keep getting that student rate. But eventually it went away.
Hi guys, my name is Charlene. I'm the one who kind of like asked the question about the membership. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but do you guys have seminars? Like, okay, so like I said, I'm still a student. So do you have seminars that can help us prep for like our exam, like for the exam? Is there any type of things like that that can help us prep?
Yes.
That's what we're, we have a flyer. So if you're free in June.
Is that, okay, I think I already,
Yeah.
I think I already signed up for that actually.
The one in June?
Yes, that was the one that had a cost to it.
Yes.
It wasn't like a free, yes, I already signed up for that.
That is our big study event that we're holding. Yeah,
Okay.
we being PAWSWay, the Pennsylvania Association for Social Work Education.
Okay.
And for those of you who want to sign up for it, there's a limited number of seats, and one school already picked up 21 seats of the 50. So there's a limited number. So please do sign up as soon as you can. It's on the flyer. Link will take you right there. Easy to sign up. It's $85, which is really cheap. Usually people pay $150 to $200 for your workshops, I think, Dawn.
Well, yeah, and the book, if you go, I mean, the book costs $95. So some people are like, oh, I'll just get the book on Amazon. I'm like, you're going to pay more for the book than you will for the course and the book. So.
And Alicia raised her hand. She has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering if the membership cost for NASW would increase if you took a break between BSW and MSW. Like, is there like a verification, like you have to send in with your, like, because most people, I don't know, like I plan on taking like maybe a semester or a year in between. So I was just wondering how that works.
So the membership lasts a year, right? So if you get a membership before you end the bachelor's and then start the master's within the next year, you're still a student.
And most students have at least a year or two that are transitional rates. So it still won't go fully up to the professional rate.
Okay. And then is there like a verification process that like you have to send in with an email? Okay. Thank you.
And Amy, renewal is every February, right? Renewal for NASW membership?
Renewal is on the is based on the date that you sign up.
Oh, every year.
Odd Februaries are licensing renewals.
Right. Okay.
So Alicia, what we tell our students in my state, we tell them to sign up before they graduate.
Right, yeah.
They still have their, because then if you take, and I didn't know if I could say this in front of Amy, but I'll say it.
I
So,
say it all the time.
okay, good. So we tell them before technically they're still a student, and that way you get a year, right? And then by the time they bug you to renew, you're probably already in an MSW program, so it kind of works out.
Yeah. We say the same thing.
When do students receive the book for the webinar in June?
Usually they'll get it right before we close. I mean, if it sells out, but we close the registration about 2 weeks before, and then they get it, within a few days after that. So they'll have it about maybe 10 days before the course.
Okay, so that's to Sean's question. Hopefully we can get it to people as early as possible. So
As soon as you give us the,
as soon as we get to 50, we close registration and then we can send it out, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, you guys just had 9 new people sign up, or you're up to 9.
Woo!
Very good.
So it's moving.
So there's only about 15 spots left in this one. So yeah, if we go over, we'll schedule another one.
Can I ask a question? I had signed up for it, but then it had something like bill later or either pay for it, and I put bill later. But I don't know if I got something mixed up in the understanding of that, because I saw, for that class.
I have your name on the registration. You'll get an email
Okay,
to either hit a link to pay or send us a check.
no problem. I can do that. I hit the wrong thing, but
That's okay.
I wanted to be
And-
registered.
Dawn, I'm assuming the book by itself is a good resource. So if students don't, they can't sign up for the class, the book itself is good, right?
Yeah, I just emailed back to Jack, it's like anything. There's people who live, who don't even have the availability of a course. So, they use the book, of course. I've never had anyone say, well, it's not like I'm going to be sitting there reading out of a book. So I think the course is valuable too. It's, extra. So if you can't make it then, if they have another one, you might want to look for another day, because the book is valuable, but the course has value on top of the book. But if your life is too crazy, of course, I think it's very hard. And again, I'm not to just go to the test without a book or a you don't even know what you're supposed to study. So I would definitely recommend having study materials. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just to say, Dawn and I are both using her book in our capstone class, and we give 10-question quizzes to our students, and they fail. They fail all the time.
Yes, they do.
And it's because you have to know how that question is worded. You have to know just what she was showing you before. And that's what the course will bring to you, is knowing how to take the test. Because you can take it again, but it's $230. Who has that to throw around? So it's probably better to spend the $85 now and learn how to do this and take the test once. It's probably best. I think you also get this, is it 6 months access to you, Dawn, in a forum setting? Or?
Yeah, so we it comes with the book, and I didn't want, again, I don't want to, this is not a
That's not, that's right.
my book, but the book comes with what we call an online learning community, and so you'll have an access code. I'm actually on it. I posted 4 times today, so I've been posting. We have a discussion board. It's like behind a firewall, and people are posting they make flashcards, so there's a whole robust online part of the book too that isn't just the book. So you'll get access, you'll get a code when you get the book for that as well. Yeah. So, but the main thing is you want to use a reputable, as I said, this is a reputable book, a reputable course. If you there are other things. So if your school might be using something, there are other, good test prep resources out there. I don't want to say I'm the only one, but there's also really lousy ones. So you just want to make sure you're using something that's, reputable and, written by a social worker.
Are there any other questions before we stop?
I just wanted to thank you guys for your time. This is helpful to me, my husband, who's a BSW, and me, who is an MSW. We're trying to open a shelter for younger families with young children to try to restart their life. And this is very helpful because he's gonna get the licensure because it's important. I can see it just means just a touch more to the employers.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be going for grant soon. So I really appreciate this. And I will see you at that course in June.
Good luck doing that.
You have a built-in study partner, Yvonne.
Yes, I do.
Hey, Miss Yvonne, are you in the city?
Yes, I'm in the city. I'm Southwest Philly.
Oh,
And
you
I've been in a shelter
Wait a
before.
minute, I might even know you.
I've
but
had
I'm
all
gonna
problems.
send you my email because it's a grant writing class coming up for the change in lands.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm a
Rolanda,
You
if
guys
you-
exchanged.
yeah, Rolanda, if you want to put that link
Okay.
in the chat, that'll probably be helpful for other people. But I
Okay,
think
no
we're
problem.
out of time.
Yep.
So let's release everybody, and I'm going to go ahead and stop
Yeah.
the recording.
Yeah,
But thank you so
all.
much.
Let's thank Dr. Apgar and